I am recording myself. All right, what's going on, everybody? My name is Spencer Ostrowski, and this is the delivering. Just the funny thing. Okay, let me just tell you a funny story before we begin this video. In my mind, I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna say it not wrong this time because I always say it wrong. But then I thought about it too much, and then I said it wrong. What do you think about
I think you need to get it together, man. It's been a long night, but I think you need to. Still think you need to
Yeah,
show
I
some
just
decorum.
got done. I just got done recording for the Aces post game coverage, of course, but this huge night of maybe not huge players, but of huge trades. It was on fire tonight. That was the whole. I think that's the big story of tonight. Is that I haven't seen this much movement in a draft in a long time.
If you want my take on it, I'll say that
All right,
NBA players were drafted tonight.
they were
Boom.
moved, drafted. Teams were drafting four players like 17 times in this draft. It was pretty crazy.
It's really wild. Especially just to see it because I wasn't able to watch it live, seeing it all fold out on the timeline and stuff like that. Just like trying to keep track of everything was pretty crazy. Obviously, like I
It
think
was, yeah.
to summarize, top three would go about as you would expect. Zion
It
going
wouldn't
with number one
exactly. Yeah, we
overall.
all knew what the first three picks were going to be in this draft, like from the start.
Imagine not being in the top three. Imagine your
Yeah,
team
I mean, it was
trading
rough.
their pick around. Couldn't be us,
Rough.
Spence.
Right.
It could not be us.
No, I think 30 seconds to take their pick. I was listening on the radio. They obviously don't announce them until 5 minutes after, but the sound that the Grizzlies made their pick was in after 30 seconds. Everyone knew everything. It was the same for the Pelicans and the Knicks as well. So I thought they drafted all three teams who they wanted. It kind of worked out in a weird way. Usually, like someone wants to leapfrog in maybe the top three, but it was not the case this year. The dominoes had fallen exactly where everyone wanted them to be.
So I guess what I really want to talk about the most is basically just the lottery because even in a draft this top heavy, it's still worth talking about like what goes on in the lottery, and I don't really think it's worth talking about too much of what happened, like outside of the top 15. So if we can start off, obviously Zion goes number one overall. That's what everyone expected from probably like since October and November of last year. He kind of became the consensus number one. He's heading on to a New Orleans team that looks pretty decent, like as far as just like their on paper starting lineup. Because now you look at a team that touts Lonzo Ball, Drew Holiday, Zion, Brandon Ingram, and now Jackson Hayes potentially, who they were able to pick up with the eighth pick. That's a pretty decent lineup. That's something that with good coaching, I think that could actually have a really good foundation for the future, especially like depending on how far along everybody is, how much of a jump Lonzo takes, and if Lonzo can stay healthy, if Brandon Ingram can stay healthy, and the respective jumps that they both take, you're looking at a team that has an outside chance of making the playoffs, just off the strength of their roster.
I think it's interesting just in general to talk about the Pelicans and the Grizzlies because let's look at what we thought for weeks ago, a month ago. The outlooks of both Memphis and Pelicans, the two least marketable teams in the league, do not
Quite
have a very
literally,
bright
the
outlook. The
two
Grizzlies look
least
they're
valuable
either going
teams in the
to,
NBA.
yeah, exactly. It looks like two teams so Pelicans may be worse off, debatably, of course. I mean, it's potatoes and potatoes at that point. But in any case, they looked like they were going to have to fire sell Anthony Davis, which is like they didn't have any leverage, so they were just going to have to get what they got for him to getting the first overall pick, which and then eventually having all the leverage in the world, being able to trade for Brandon Ingram, like you said, Lonzo Ball, and now you have like 14,000 first round draft picks, which I'll talk about in a second. But just to finish my point here is to say that so you have an incredible outlook for the Pelicans now, who look like they were going to be like Anthony Davis list and having a late first round pick or like an average first round pick versus what they got now. And then you have a Memphis team who looked like they were going to convey their pick, lose Mike Conley, and only have Jaren Jackson for the foreseeable future, to getting a polarizing player like John Morant, who everyone thinks can be a triple double machine. So I I still think that the NBA draft is rigged because I just think the NBA is a business and they
They
try to
threw
do
him.
things to promote their business.
They threw David Griffin that number one pick just Just out of
to
pity for this.
completely change the course of New Orleans.
Out of pity for
None of
this
this
whole AD
happens.
situation.
None of this happens without them winning the lottery.
Yeah.
It could
It,
all be luck, and but again, I don't care. I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy in general. It's just in this case, it seriously seems like it because look how different the Pelicans are now versus where we thought they would be, where they should have been really.
regardless of the merit of the Pelicans earning the first overall draft pick, the simple fact that they did altered the course of the NBA for the next decade probably. Knowing like the biggest top flight talent since LeBron James easily is now going to be on the Pelicans for the next at least 4 to 7 years. Um, that's big. And now moving on to Ja Morant, obviously, I think the Grizzlies, as far as just any team, just had the most to gain in this situation. Um, just as a going from like you said being the most likely scenario for them and the most desirable scenario for them, just because the chance of them moving into the top three like this is so small, was like it couldn't have gone better for them. The only way it goes better for them is if they get number one instead of number two. Like
Right. And yeah, I thought maybe we had a chance. But so now we can kind of go a little more since we're talking about the Pelicans, I figure we can stay a little bit on topic about the Pelicans and just kind of go over what they did. You go over their pick and also trading back, which, you know, I'll say this now, like everyone might think David Griffin's like a technical wizard. A lot of it was a layup for him, but at the end of the day, like he has a lot of first round draft picks, which everyone like thinks is like you're the GM of the century. But
leapfrog
as
Danny Ainge is
we
the
have seen
crown
with the
king of
Celtics, yeah,
assets.
we all thought for the last 2 years that like, dude, they have every asset in the world. Like they are on top of they can't be stopped. Like they're just making all these great deals,
To
and
to Griffin's credit, I think the approach that he's taken to using the draft assets has been much more in the short time that he's had the kind of assets that he's had. I think he's done a much better job utilizing them as Danny Ainge has, because Danny Ainge, you would have to shake him down pretty hard for him to give up like a second round pick at this point. And Griffin's already flipping the number 4 picks. He's already flipping 4 picks into 8 picks and all this other kind of stuff, and getting the guys that they feel like that they need. So, as far as like, yeah, assets don't get you far. How you use them is what's really important. And I think that
and
Griffin is
only time will
setting,
tell.
yeah, Griffin's setting a good precedent for how he's using them. Because I would much rather just like assets are nothing like until they become players. So
Yeah. So it on paper it looks like he's doing a really good job. I guess Hayes was his target. Like that's the guy who he wanted in the draft after Zion. So he was able to move back and still take the guy he wanted at the end of the day. So that looks good on him. I don't know. To me, Hayes is just another Willie Cauley Stein, but he hasn't touched the basketball court yet. So we'll see how that goes. But they have the easiest pick in the draft at number 1. So the verdict to me is still out for the whole Pelican strategy. We'll see, because as of right now, everything's essentially been
spoon fed to them.
spoon to them, whatever the fuck it's called, spoon fed.
Yes. Yeah. So then, if we can fully move
Right,
on to the Grizzlies, like I said, Ja Morant,
yeah,
just the best case scenario for them. I think even I don't know, like even in a sense of like obviously you want Zion, like you want the best
yeah.
overall talent, but I feel like as
Everyone
far as
wants
fit,
LeBron James. Yeah,
I feel like as far as fit and as like their situation and their timeline, I think Ja Morant's the best possible player they can have in this kind of situation. With Conley out of the door now, heading over to Utah, and Jaren Jackson kind of needing another top flight young player to pair up next to him, and that one being a point guard that can basically just feed him lobs all game long. I think it's going to be really good foundationally for the Grizzlies, especially in a time where they can really start to establish a new team culture and a new team identity. Ja Morant, that's a layup of a pick for them. It's like I said, these first 3 picks were about the easiest.
seamlessly transitioned into their next two. They seamlessly transitioned into their next 2 franchise pieces. They went from Mike Conley and Marc Gasol to now Jaren Jackson, Ja Morant, and it's a more modern style with the 2, of course, too, which is looking like it's going in the right direction, and something that I think Taylor Jenkins will have a good time, molding them because they're so young, both of them. So they have a new coach, and this is now his team. Obviously, now I mean, there's no excuses for him. There's no pressure for him to make the playoffs. I'm just saying, like, it's on him to develop this team because next year the only players on contract are Javon Carter, Jaren Jackson, and now John Morant. Like everything else is like a blank slate. So he can do literally whatever he wants.
And yeah, and it just like I said, it just highlights the fact that these first three picks were such a layup. They just not only do they make such obvious sense in a vacuum, regardless of who the top three teams are that are going to be picking these guys, but just like for the teams in the situations, Zion, like you have Anthony Davis heading out the door. What better way to replace him than with Zion Williamson? Mike Conley's out the door. What better way to replace him with John Morant? The Knicks need a living, breathing basketball player. RJ Barrett is one of those. He does that.
He stuff. Does. He plays basketball.
So
he
yeah,
certainly does.
So we can be afforded now to move into discussing the Maple Mamba himself. I'm really happy with the pick. I believe the Knicks got the second best player in this draft, just off their sheer raw talent. I think he's an incredibly versatile player, super dummy athletic. He's built like a brick shit house. Like there's a lot to like about RJ Barrett. Obviously, the way things shook out at Duke, he had a little bit. There's a reason he is third overall instead of first overall. He was the consensus number one prospect heading into the college season a year ago, and obviously fell off a little bit. And obviously that's because Zion, had such a surge to the top. I don't think that's I don't think that's as much of an indictment on RJ as as a lot of people would think, or they would have you think. He still played incredibly well. I think he still showcased a lot of skills that are going to be really valuable in the NBA. And I think in a situation where now he's kind of out of Zion's shadow and he's really motivated to take this New York team, whatever they end up with in free agency, whatever roster they're pushing out to start the season in the fall, I think he's really motivated to try and take them to the next level. And I think he's got the perfect combination of just the physical traits, the body, and the skills to make that happen for them. And I think he like the two taken before him have really big chances of becoming all-stars in this league.
Yeah, it's the Knicks' whole situation is interesting to look at. Obviously, they had to take RJ Barrett here. I'm not going to say no. Mm-hmm. It's just they want top flight talents, but the team doesn't seem right now. There's everything can change with trades, obviously, but the Knicks are so young right now. It's almost as if they would rather just stay committed to young players and develop from there versus trying to get just one star player now to surround him with all these young players. I don't know. I'm not in the Knicks front office.
I think that proposes an interesting scenario then, especially because you have Kevin Durant, who's not going to play at all next year, nursing the Achilles. You give the chance for all of these young guys to kind of figure, like if he does end up signing and he ends up taking that year off to rehab while on the Knicks' dime, I think it does afford those young guys the opportunity to kind of just like, okay, we got to figure this out. How am I going to fit on this team once KD is going to be suited up and ready to play next year? And it also gives the Knicks time to be like, to evaluate their roster and be like, all right, what's gonna work with when KD is ready to play and what isn't. And especially like you having that year to let RJ kind of figure everything out without the pressure of being an underling to any other star player. Because I'm at the point now where if I'm the Knicks, I would rather just sign KD, have him on ice for the year, and just leave it at that. I'm not really interested in any like Tobias Harris's or Chris Middleton's or Kyrie Irving's at this point. Not guys that are just gonna like signing for the sake of signing them and having them, because plopping any old guy that isn't the caliber of Kevin Durant or Kawhi Leonard, like it's not gonna really make a difference for this team. They're gonna miss the playoffs by 5 or 6 games instead of by 20 or 30 games. And that's really that's where I fall as far as the Knicks heading into the rest of the summer here.
It'll be interesting on this team. It's still too young really to win a championship, so they're gonna have to transform the roster in some sense. It's hard to say now because we're talking as if he was already on the roster, which it seems likely because it seems like he wants to go there. But again, he's going to have to, if he's a part of it, maybe he'll be like really involved in the front office and shaping the team for the year that he wants. But we're not going to get too far into the whole Knicks offseason. We can make a separate video about that. So we should probably move on to number 4.
DeAndre Hunter is going to the Atlanta Hawks. What do you think?
Yeah, they traded up and got their guy. Well, they traded back like last time to get their guy, but they got their guy in 2 years in a row is the best way to kind of describe it. And this time they ended up trading up to do it.
I like DeAndre Hunter.
Yeah, he's solid defensively. That's what they're going for, obviously.
Great size, great physical build. I think his skills as far as like scoring wise and just his efficiency, I think are 2 notches under his belt that are going to be really useful for him, especially with the Hawks trying to build out this identity, kind of similar to what the Warriors have kind of been all about.
It's exactly. I said this a year ago. You can go look at my draft analysis. The way they drafted, they're looking exactly to make a Warrior style team. It's like one for one almost. It's almost exact. So
And like this kind of pick for Atlanta, it kind of indicates like how impressive they've kind of their mentality has been and kind of the way they've conducted things because everything's been a really calculated. They've taken risks, obviously trading up to, trade like the whole Trae Young trade and stuff like that, and even taking Trae Young instead of Luka Doncic. It's been pretty like there are risks, but they're pretty calculated risks in the sense of like there's definitely a long-term vision that you can see when they're taking these risks, and I can like if it does pay off for them, you'll be able to see exactly why because they were pretty upfront with everything that they're doing, and I think Hunter is really indicative of that because I think he fits really well in a front court next to John Collins.
and this team is obviously very comfortable with the where they feel draft boards are, and they've got it twice in a row. They knew like they weren't scared that the Grizzlies were going to take Trae Young. They kept the 10th pick and they wanted Cam Reddish. Like that was the whole report going into it, and they were able to get him and also get the guy that they wanted. Clearly, they wanted DeAndre Hunter by trading up for him, but I know they were also interested in getting Cam Reddish, and they felt comfortable enough of trading one of their two lottery picks to go up to get DeAndre Hunter. So kudos to them. Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter is certainly not a very bad haul for this draft.
Especially just in the manner of them moving up to the 4 pick. I think it's just really impressive. Just the way they've gone about
good. I think they've had 2 really good drafts in a row. So, and this team on teams watching the league without a doubt, even last season. And now it'll be even more interesting to see how these 2 young rookies will be playing along with this a little more veteran team. Like starting to get there, like you'll have the sophomores,
kids, man.
The freshmen. Yeah,
they're all kids. What I thought was most interesting about this draft specifically is it's such like we've talked about. Everyone knows it's a really top heavy draft. It's a 3-horse race essentially. And I think obviously once those 3 guys are out of the way, it really like there's no talent that really rises far enough above the other. In a sense
I think that's why so many trades happened in this draft because everyone's draft board was so drastically different, and teams were worried that their guy was going to be taken at certain points, so they moved up or moved back. Everyone had differing opinions. Like all the teams, there was no consensus for anything. So
exactly,
that's why there's a lot of movement.
And I think that like usually you want to be in a situation where you just take the best available player, and when that's not really clear, that kind of puts a lot of these teams in the situation where they start to draft for fit and what their team really needs. And I think this was a good compromise of getting a player that was among the best available and getting something that like kind of fits what your team needs at this point in time. Because John Collins is great and he's like I think he's one of the best young players in the league, but he's like he needs someone down there with him, as far as like being in the front court. So I think this is a really good pick for Atlanta.
Yeah, they had another solid draft, so it'll be fun to watch them next year. We will move on to the Cavaliers, who wanted to trade this pick, but they ended up not being able to. They didn't get a good offer, I guess.
And they didn't really.
That's what it came down to. It was like they're looking to get rid of this pick, but I don't know. They're like, all right, well, if no one's going to trade, I guess we'll just take Darius Garland.
Yep. So Darius Garland ends up being the pick for Cleveland at 5. I'm gonna let you take the point on this one. I want to see what you feel about it first.
they're just, I don't know. Hey, they're done with Colin Sexton. It feels like, right? I
I
mean, that's
don't
kind of
like.
that's the general feeling.
I mean, like that is side of the what's one side of this situation, and there's the other, and both seem equally bad. It's that either you gave up on Colin Sexton after a year,
Right.
and like that's obviously not what you want because you gave up Kyrie Irving essentially to get Colin Sexton,
Yeah.
um, and like that'd be bad. Just giving up on a guy a year after
That
you
would not be
draft him,
good.
that'd be pretty
I agree.
dumb. Like that would make everyone involved look pretty stupid. But then the other side of it is that you have Darius Garland and Colin Sexton in your backcourt, and that obviously just that's not too
It's a mess. It doesn't work
that's not what I want in my
on
backcourt. If
paper.
we're gonna be honest here,
Anything can happen, but then on paper, it's pretty shit.
I don't want to tell
You
tales out of
guys who
school.
aren't not good at passing are your
Yeah, there's obviously stuff to like about Garland though. He's a dead eye sharpshooter. Like he can really hit. He
yeah.
can nail
No, yeah,
himself some
that's
threes. And obviously that allows him the ability to play off ball. The question is, will Colin Sexton pass to him? It's just like there's a lot of this introduces a lot of questions about fit.
yeah, the
I do
Cavs
think
need to sign Draymond to a max deal for this to work.
I do
It
think
feels like it, right?
yeah, but I do
Because
think
these guys
Garland.
are
Yeah,
real point guards.
I think Garland is the. I think he's kind of the best pick at this situation. I think he's the best available talent. Depending on how you felt, I, me personally, if I was Cleveland, I probably would have taken a look at Jarrett Culver at this because I think when you're in this situation, like we said, when talent doesn't really rise too far above the rest, you can really start to. That's when it becomes acceptable to draft more for fit, and I think Culver fills a need for them that they've kind of just like had a
I
gaping
don't
hole
think
with.
Cleveland. Yeah, I don't think they ever expected to have this pick. I really don't. I think they were looking to shop it for a long time and they just never got anything for it. So they were just like, "Fuck it, dude. We'll just take whoever."
It's just I don't know, man. The immediate thought is yuck. Like
Yeah,
you got two
the
six
gut reaction is yeah.
you got two you got two 6'3" point guards who both weigh under 200 pounds. It's just like I don't know, man. That doesn't.
And neither of them are like generally good at being a point guard either.
Yeah, so I just
You know,
yeah he both of these having a backcourt where neither point guard really passes is it's a big WTF for me. So that's really all I'll leave that at. I'm obviously not
yeah,
writing off Darius Garland as a pro player. I think he's got some
yeah.
skills
Just on
that'll.
this team,
I think he's got some skills that'll help him be a pro that can contribute on an NBA team. But just this fit, it just doesn't like fit. Like the situation you get drafted into is more important than people will ever really give credit for. And this is not a good situation to be drafted into,
yeah.
and I don't think in any case. So good luck to Darius Garland. He's going to need it. Like
He's going to
that's all you
Cleveland.
can really say.
He's going to Cleveland.
So now moving on, we had the Phoenix Suns making probably the dumbest trade I've ever seen in my entire life.
They have their point guard of their future like right in their palm of their hands, and they
I
don't take
don't
him.
I don't get it. I genuinely don't understand what the.
It's like
Do you have the full trade?
no, I don't. Not well. Maybe I can find it, but if I can just
All right, so Minnesota
get,
didn't have to give up too much to move from 11 to 6, and the Timberwolves should like the fit of Jarrett Culver. So I believe the trade was just Dario Saric. I think Dario Saric was all it took, and swapping picks. That's insane to me, man. If that's all it took, and then just for them to take
yeah, I
Cameron
can find it.
Johnson,
Uh, yeah, this whole situation reminds me of that meme where the guy rides a bike and he puts a stick in the front wheel. That's what it feels like for the Suns.
I don't
It's
get
like
it, man.
we don't have any point guards, and the stick is like representative of trading any chances they have of getting one.
I don't. I want someone
This
to
team
explain
still
this.
doesn't have a point guard on the roster.
I want someone to
Still
explain
don't.
this to me. They must have some kind of like. They must have some like elite tampering going on with D'Angelo Russell or something. Like they must have like some kind of
Or
guarantee.
Kyrie or
They
something
must
weird,
have some
man.
kind
Yeah,
of
I don't know.
guarantee that they're going to get a point guard in free agency.
Yeah,
Because-
some sort of weird verbal agreement. Because why wouldn't they pick the point guard? That
But
is
anyway,
pretty.
let's talk about the team who made an actual good decision in the Timberwolves trading up to get this pick, because I really like Jarrett Culver. If it wasn't going
I
to
like
be RJ for the Knicks, I would have really liked it to be Jarrett Culver. I think he's one of the most complete players in this draft.
yeah. And they didn't have to give up too much for it either. They just gave up Dario Saric, who's pretty good, obviously, but they feel like they're going to get a lot more value out of this shooting guard
I
from
mean,
Texas.
yeah, if you look at Dario, he's a guy who peaked probably 2 years ago, and
Just a role player,
and then
good one.
swapping picks and getting a guy that like can really like Cat has been in like some pretty shitty situations as a player, just being like as good for being as good as he is. I don't think he's been like I don't think he's been met with that kind of prioritization of getting guys around him that will like actually help him. Obviously Jimmy Butler's there and they make the playoffs, but obviously the situation ends up being toxic anyway, and we all know what happens from there. And then Andrew Wiggins is just not very good at all at basketball and gets paid like he is the actual best at basketball, which he is not. This seems like a good fit for like, hey, like we understand that like this is the kind of guy that Karl Anthony Towns needs, someone who can take the pressure off him and someone who can, like draw some attention from defenses and you can give Cat some space to breathe. And I think this is a great pick for Minnesota. I think, especially for how low risk it was. You get rid of Dario Saric, like
Yeah,
it's
no,
Dario Saric, and you swap picks, and that's all it really took. And I, if I'm Minnesota, I would do that 100 out of 100 times.
yeah, and they'll never be able to trade out of Andrew Wiggins' contract, but this is a good start for a team looking to finally move towards something who has been just nothing for so long.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like something like it seems obviously it sucks that they're trying to like actually do some legitimate building around Cat like 4 years into his career. Like he's about to sign his first extension, and they're actually like just now starting to pay attention to him. That's unfortunate, but you like to see something is better than nothing. So that's the Timberwolves. Really
Yeah,
like that
yeah,
pick. Thumbs up for that. We'll move on to the Chicago Bulls, who take Kobe White from North Carolina, a shooting
yeah.
guard from North Carolina. What do you think?
They are well. He's more of a guard more, but in any case, they're looking to get rid of Chris Dunn and looking to move on to another guard, a point guard or whatever, who they think can be better than Chris Dunn. I mean, that's all this pick is about to me.
I didn't see much of Kobe White, but I do know that like as far as his development during his time in North Carolina, he developed a bit as a passer, and I think Chicago choosing him at this spot kind of is indicative of their belief in how he can develop into a lead guard. So I think that combined with his athleticism, it's just their backcourt's going to be super bouncy, man. Him and Levine are gonna be fun on the break.
Yeah, they're looking for someone who fits with Zach Levine is all they're doing.
And
So
it's just like,
they're
you know,
trying
if
this.
if the pick doesn't work out, the lower we go down this list, the lower risk these picks get. So if you get a guy in Kobe White and you believe in him like that, I don't see an issue with taking him. Especially just because the guys who are taken after him, they don't really provide much more as far as like something to believe in. So if that's who they think can fit next to Levine in a backcourt, more power to them. I think this is a good. If it is a shot in the dark, it's a good shot in the dark.
The only other player they could have probably taken was Cam Reddish, but it wouldn't really have made sense right there. So I think they took the guy who they just had to take unless they were going to trade back.
So yeah, good job for the Bulls. And now we move on to the pick swap that New Orleans had with
Yeah,
Atlanta, and they end up taking Jackson Hayes from Texas, a
I already
seven-footer.
talked about him. I think he's just another Willie Cauley Stein, in my opinion.
Um, Willie Cauley Stein's pretty good.
Yeah,
he's
sure. I don't
he's
know.
not the worst.
I'm not saying that's a terrible thing. I'm just saying I think he's another Willie Cauley Stein.
Centers. My opinion on centers has shifted drastically in the past few months, especially now. It's just like I think you can get a good. I don't think you can. Good centers fall off trees, man. And so like
Maybe I don't. I mean, I don't know. Marcus Saul was a difference maker in the finals.
I mean, yeah, like you can literally fall in. You can fall ass backwards into a good center, and like
Sure.
if they think that this is one of those guys, then that's fine. Because Jackson Hayes is definitely a super like for his size,
Yeah,
is a
he's
really
a freak
athletic guy.
athlete. Yeah,
So if you're gonna pair him with Zion, I see the vision there. You know, like I get what you're trying
sure.
to do here.
We'll see.
So if that's what they want to roll out, they want to roll out Lonzo and Drew, Ingram, Zion, and Jackson Hayes. I can see where you're coming from with that, and I think in this draft, it doesn't really like hurt you too much because the talent is just like it's so hit or miss with
Yeah,
this with this
not the-
draft.
after Jackson Hayes, it really starts like the real like people you really can start get behind, and like it falls off pretty hard.
So now we're ready to move on to Washington, and I had to laugh because I've
It's
heard
just
a
a
lot,
Washington Wizards pick.
dude. Oh man, I
It's
saw
a
a tweet.
Wizards pick.
Saw a tweet after this talking about Rui. They asked Rui Hachimura. Uh, Also, shout out to Rui Hachimura, by the way, being the first Japanese-born NBA
Yeah,
player.
cool. No,
to be
I think it's great.
drafted. Put on my yellow brother. They just asked him. He's like, "Yeah, I hadn't talked with the Wizards once this entire process," and I'm like, "Sounds about right, man. It sounds
Sounds good.
about right." And like one of the ownership, like there was a quote from one of the ownership members, the members of the ownership group, saying that like Rui being a Japanese-born player will help him in a city of the world like Washington D.C. And I'm like, oh man, they had no fucking clue what they were doing with this one, did they, man?
Raw dogging it. That was
They
the
were
raw dogging pick of the night. That can be our new annual award of the
the
year
raw
for the
dogging it
draft.
award of the night. I think
The raw dogging it award
I think
goes to
this
the
was
Washington.
I think this was more of a raw dog than the Suns because it just it epitomizes and encapsulates the phrase raw dog because they did not they just went in, they're like, oh, we picked 9, that guy, it's gonna be that guy, and nothing
Like they
against Rui,
forgot.
and nothing against Rui Hachimura. Like I think he kind of underperformed a little bit at Gonzaga this year, but there's still promise there. He's like absolutely like he's massive. He's a tank, man. 234 pounds at 6'10". Like there's like if you want a guy who's like a physical specimen, like I think that would be a merit to draft him. I don't think the Wizards considered that at all. I bet you the Wizards thought this guy was 6'6", 210 pounds. Like that wouldn't have surprised me either.
They looked at his nationality, man. I'm telling you.
He's an Rui Hachimura was an affirmative action hire.
Yeah. Not what I'm saying.
Kidding.
Not that I'm
We're
fucking.
kidding.
Not that either of us are fucking racist. We're just. We seriously think that the Wizards are that incompetent. That's
No, but
that's
like,
what the main takeaway from this is.
it's more of a sense of like the Wizards just did not do their due diligence for this
No.
draft whatsoever.
No,
Just getting a guy that
really not.
like this guy is essentially kind of like, what's the difference between taking Troy Brown last year and taking Rui Hachimura this year? They're really kind of just like guys who are
Who play basketball?
They're on the more athletic end of the spectrum, and like both are like physically built out, and it's just like these guys are essentially the same player, and
Yeah, they're already done with Troy Brown, I'm sure.
the Wizards are just they're such a mess, man.
That's the Wizards. Raw dogging an award.
They're such a mess. All right, so let's move on because we're going.
Yeah, we already talked. Yeah, we already talked pretty extensively about Atlanta. They got their other guy, Cam Reddish, like we said. Yeah,
I do want to talk about Cam Reddish for a bit because I have beef with Cam Reddish.
Yeah.
Cam Reddish is an empty gym all-star. Like, I think the empty gym all-star videos were what kept him in the top 10. Honestly, just I feel for him in a way. He was the first guy to sign to Duke, and thinking I was under the impression that it would be kind of his situation. I don't know how like on board he was with Zion and RJ coming along with him, but I do think he signed under the intention that it would be like his team to kind of like showcase his ability, and it backfired on him completely because he not only was he kind of in the shadow of two guys who seemed to be much better players than him, but he was also like he did not play well. Like he did not play to the standard that people thought a guy like Cam Reddish could play to, especially just like one with his like physical build and his skills. Like he reminded me a lot of Paul George, like heading in, just a guy who can be a really like upper tier defender and can kind of just be a 3-level scorer. And he just didn't do any of that at Duke this year, and that's the most disappointing thing to me. I still think that his intangible skills are what kept him in the top 10. But hopefully, he can try and figure it out in a situation where it doesn't really. It's gonna require him to be skilled at the stuff he was underwhelming at Duke as far as his 3-point shooting is concerned.
Yeah, he's drafted where he is for his potential, not how he played in last season. And I do think he was. I do think that Duke team was constructed pretty weird because there were no shooters, and neither of the three top players in the top 10 are great shooters. I could say they're not sharp shooters.
Well,
So
I think
I
Cam.
think that
Well, I think Cam was supposed to be that guy who spaced the floor for them, and the fact that he just wasn't hitting his 3-pointers kind of put the whole thing dead in the water as far as Duke's spacing. I think that Cam not being able to shoot threes was the reason Duke couldn't go any further in March Madness this year. Sorry, but go ahead.
but yeah, I mean, I don't think that he was ever meant to be a sharp shooter, just a scorer, and that he wasn't able to do that obviously because he played with two players who were better than him. So I think that given the right situation, it'll be more interesting to see him on a team versus like this kind of team than it was on Duke. So it's kind of like my little 2-minute spiel on Cam Reddish.
Yeah, final verdict on Cam Reddish. He's a guy. Obviously, he was disappointing at Duke, but the natural talent that he has and he possesses, I think, still makes him worth picking in the top 10.
Yeah.
And I think the not a bad get for your second pick in the top 10 if you're Atlanta, which is just crazy to me.
He was the best available.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the Phoenix Suns, man.
Pick up another fucking forward, man.
The Phoenix Suns take up Cameron Johnson after immediately trading for a power forward. So, yeah. I just like
I don't get it.
I don't know much about I'll admit I don't know much about Cameron Johnson. I don't think it matters
It's
because
not the position they need.
he's going to Phoenix, and I just don't trust Phoenix to do anything that a good basketball team does. You know, like I just don't like. It just doesn't make sense because I'm literally aghast right now. I don't know what to say about this.
it's just not the position that they needed. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
I mean, that's all you really can say. It's just like, why did you draft this guy?
Why didn't you just get your point guard?
Why didn't if you were gonna make a trade, why
And
didn't
they
you
all
trade up
they
for
trade.
Garland?
Yeah.
If you were gonna make a trade, why didn't you like? There were so
I-
many options. Like there were so many avenues and options that they had as far as his pick, and it's just they did just probably the stupidest thing. This guy's like, obviously these you have to consider like context and stuff like that. Like this guy's position rank was 6th. His overall rank was 19th in this on this draft board, and they took him at 11. Like, I just don't. I hope Cameron Johnson is nice. I really, really do. I think it's great to have more good basketball players in the NBA, contrary to popular belief. But I just like, what is the vision in Phoenix, man? Like, what are they doing?
D'Angelo Russell must have his house already bought in Phoenix.
He's got to have his season passes to the Phoenix Zoo just in the mail, man. I don't.
Yeah, I don't
just
know.
don't get it.
Yeah,
Do
there's
better,
not much more.
Phoenix. Do better.
Don't
So,
be bad.
with the 12th overall pick,
Big fan of this
The Hornets take PJ Washington. Tell me why you're a big fan of this pick.
I just think that he's. I just think it's another solid pick. I liked it when they got Miles Bridges last year, and I like that they got another forward. And I hope Kemba Walker leaves. Like just not.
Just let them start over.
Yeah, like finally they don't have to keep fake giving like putting players around Kemba. They can finally just focus on their young players, and I think that PJ Washington could develop into a really good player in terms of his athleticism and even his shooting. So I'm a big fan.
Kentucky guys are never a bad bet. I'll say that. Especially guys who were efficient at Kentucky. I think big guys who can defend are always going to be valuable in the NBA. And if that's what you're drafting PJ Washington for, and if that's what you expect from him, I think you're going to get a nice return on that investment. And there's not much to say about it. I think it's a good pick as well.
Yep. Yep.
All right, so now we go back to back with Kentucky guys, and we have Tyler Harrow. What do you
Who
think about Tyler Harrow?
dropped in the draft for sure.
Yeah, he was.
From where he was supposed to be. He was
A lot of people
highly
viewed
coveted
Harrow.
going into
A
the
lot of people
season.
viewed Harrow as a top 10 pick. Um, I never really saw it with him. I think.
Lateral quickness is a big problem for him, and explosion, which is two things that you like absolutely need in the NBA. But there are other good parts of his game. But yeah, he unless he works on that, he won't have a very long NBA career.
You just can't be 6'6" and not play defense, man. I don't
Yeah, it's a problem.
like that's the perfect size for someone to be able to play perimeter defense. And if you don't, it's viewed as a huge hole in your game. I would say. I hate like I wouldn't like to have a guy who at the 6'6" position can't shuffle his feet laterally and not get beat off the dribble. So like the Heat are in a just weird spot all the time because they're always paying someone way too much money, and like their young players never really are impactful enough to really like move them above or below wherever they are like in the league currently. And I think this is just another one of those picks that this is a I won't say he's a Tyler Johnson like clone, but I don't think he moves the needle. I think he'll be fine. I just don't think he moves the needle.
It's just says a lot about the draft. The lottery is not it's not a complete lottery. It kind of feel like you're getting into late first round picks already.
All right, so rounding out towards the end of the lottery here, we have the Celtics picking up Romeo Langford, and I honestly think this is a good get for
It's a
Boston.
good value for what they for where they got the draft. He dropped far, obviously.
Um, Obviously he has the same pitfalls. Another 6'6" guard who has trouble on the defensive end of the ball, and also has a lot of issues shooting.
Yeah, he was also butt.
Yeah,
in
and
this
also he
season.
just did not play very well, especially
Yeah.
because he was like Tyler Harrow was projected to be even as high as a top 5 pick.
Yeah, his top as high as 4. Yeah, I in the beginning of the season, that's who I wanted the Grizzlies to take when I had heard about him
And
until
it's
I watched
just
him play basketball, and then I was like,
yeah,
please
so
don't.
like you're seeing a common theme here. A lot of these guys just couldn't really perform on the college level, and so hopefully you hope hopefully a guy like Langford is going to a semi stable situation, or actually maybe a decreasingly stable situation. The more I think about it, just because
Yeah, no kidding.
they have
Now he's probably going to be fighting with Scary Terry.
yeah exactly. There's just we have all these situations and pretty much the Celtics are kind of selling off everyone on their team older than 25
For
years old.
for a team that just lost Kyrie Irving,
It
like
kind of,
his shooting ability, they just picked up a guy who shot 27.2% from the 3-point line
I
last
mean,
season.
everything kind of just seems like they're systematically like they're kind of low key blowing it up, and it's kind of like not really their choice because all
Whether
of
they
their
wanted
players are
to or
just
not, yeah.
yeah, it's not really their choice either because all their players are just leaving them, and so now it's just like we have. I just don't really. The more I think about this trade, the more I'm like, yeah, it seems like you just got the best guy available without really considering how he would fit on your team, because now you have a bunch of guys who are in that 6'6", 6'8" range, and they all gotta play somewhere, and they're not all gonna be able to start. So now you have Langford and you have Jaylen Brown, Tatum. You're paying Gordon Hayward's albatross of a contract. Like, where all these guys gonna go,
They should
man?
have pursued the Conley trade much more than they did.
I think it would have worked out much better for them. I think they could have. I think they could have gotten that trade
I think you could have changed everything.
at not much of a price to them. I think literally what you and I talk about all the time is that them just giving Memphis their pick back would have done the trick,
Or even
and some
this
other
pick,
package
like
like
this pick and then our pick back, because the Grizzlies would have probably drafted Romeo Langford in this spot, which would have been a much better look. And then the Celtics probably don't lose Al Horford at that point too, as well. I think.
perhaps, man. I think if you have someone who can just kind of replace Kyrie and maybe even be a better fit than Kyrie for what that team is,
Yeah, for
because
what they're looking for. Yeah,
Mike Conley like being less of a someone who doesn't need the ball as much as Kyrie Irving does, and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown being guys who need the ball much more than they got with Kyrie on their team, I think it would have been a good fit for them. And I think Danny Ainge has done a lot of missing out this summer. He's done a lot of missing out on stuff.
Ball.
He does. He's not having a great year. So to round out, final pick of the lottery, we have Sekou Doumbouya from says he's from Guinea, but he is French. He's homies with my boy Frank Ntilikina. And getting picked in the tail end of the lottery and being a Euro player, it is quite literally a hit or miss situation. You could be Jokic, you could be Giannis, or you could be out of the league in 2 years. So I don't even know
if he has the motor to be in the freaking NBA, man. Like
I'm
his motor is
highly
questionable to me.
I'm going to be as neutral as I possibly can be about Sekou and say, I don't know. I think he has some stuff there, but at the same time, like you said,
fundamentals.
He doesn't really. Yeah, his feel for the game is not
his feel,
great.
that's the best way to describe it. His feel for the game is very lacking.
And the motor, it's kind of an intangible. It's kind of an intangible, hard to measure thing, but you can see it in the guys that don't have it. You see it in guys like Kevin Knox who kind of struggle to lock themselves in and play with that kind of intensity that's necessary for them to be consistent on an NBA floor. And I think you see a lot of that with Sekou, and hopefully that's something that they can get over, but it kind of is the kiss of death for a lot of players with potential in the NBA. For the Pistons to get it, I don't really know. I honestly don't really know what that does for them. I don't think I think by virtue of the Pistons not really having a lot of players, I think there's an opportunity for you to insert him and have him start. But that's just something, I don't know, man. That's unless you want to start him at the 3, and I feel like he's a little heavy for the 3. So in that case, I don't see him, it's probably unlikely that he does. Yeah, so Sekou, good luck, buddy.
Or suck you,
Oh man, so that is the NBA draft lottery. Those are the only 15 picks that mattered outside of Bol falling to the second round. RIP to my mans. We're just not out here. We're not out here drafting 7-3 centers anymore, man. We're off that.
Also, just wasn't very good.
Small sample size. I won't make a judgment on Bol
we'll
either.
See. Denver is committed to projects now.
Played 9 games, so they're in a position where they can do projects
2 years in a row.
They were the 1 seed, so it's not really. They only really stand to benefit from it. So
yeah.
That was the lottery. Those were the lottery picks in the draft this year. Those were the only picks that mattered in our opinion. So send us home, friends. Send us home.
Yeah. It's an honor to be doing this YouTube channel for over a year, I guess is worth saying, because I remember doing my last draft year analysis.
Crazy.
So thank you to everyone who's watched me and Kevin and all of our videos. I'm just gonna start fucking crying, dude. I only have 17 fucking subscribers, and I'm about to cry.
Like Zion.
Yeah, seriously.
A lot to get here, man.
Yeah, this is my draft night too, right? This is a special night for me too. I guess I will always kind of remember draft night for that. So, thanks, guys.
We're thankful for all the people who tune in.
Yeah, dude, I'm thankful for every single subscriber. I don't care if I have 17 or 100,000. I appreciate everybody. Anyone who supports me, guys like JK, who I went to the game with tonight, even just anybody, man. It means a whole bunch. It means the world to me that you guys would support a small time channel, and when it grows, it'll be even better. So, thank you.
Yeah, it's obviously the goal to get everything to grow and get this to as many people as possible, and the people who we know would enjoy it. But we do it because it's fun for us, Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get paid. We don't get paid to do this. We do it because we love it.
But yeah, that was.
Thanks for everything, guys.
Yep.
Let us know what you guys think down below too. Obviously, we're a very interactive channel. You guys see us all the time. We almost and comment on everything that gets put down. So, and follow Delivering Sports on Instagram. I made an Instagram account as well.
All right, guys. Yeah, follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram at Delivering Sports at Our Geek Culture, and have a great heckin' day.
Yes, hell yeah.